Is it worse to explode out than it is to fracture a testicle or to what was it? What was the other word?
Rupture.
Rupture. So which is the word? The worst of the verbs is rupture. You guys are saying not fractured. A ruptured
yes.
testicle is worse than a fractured testicle.
It feels that way. Yeah.
I'm not sure it feels that way.
I feel like it feels pretty
like,
similar.
I'm feeling like if it ruptures, it's good and it's gone and the pain's gone. Where it's fractured, it's throbbing and staying.
Rupture implies explosion.
Yes.
Whereas fracture just implies there's a little slit in it.
Yeah, it sounds like a break as opposed to a tear.
It sounds worse than that. A good deal worse than that. Doesn't sound like a break or a tear. It sounds like you guys are talking about either a fractured testicle or an exploding testicle.
Oh.
Because ruptured is a spot before exploding. Or are they synonyms? We're doing synonyms? And it's an exploding testicle? Because I think we'd agree that an exploding testicle is worse than a ruptured testicle is worse than a fractured testicle.
I agree. I'd rather have my testicle rupture than explode.
I mean, I think so. Pull and tear are different terminologies when you're talking about muscles, but they're both essentially like different levels of a tear.
Can you pull a testicle?
I have.
Why can't you?
What did you say?
You heard me.
What's the worst thing to rupture? I'm all in on spleen.
You said you pulled a testicle?
Put it on the poll at
I
LeBatard
asked
Show.
if you could.
Yeah.
Is the worst
Go right
thing
ahead. No
to
one's stopping you.
Is the worst thing to rupture a spleen?
Hold my right ball.
Can you stop? Can I get you to stop? Stop doing everything that you're doing over there.
I think like there could be another lesson to be learned is like the game is to get very close and make everybody think you're going to say or do the thing, but never actually say ball. That's like the move, right?
Yeah, but subtlety's not a strength.
Sometimes you got to go with it, though.
You don't, though.
You slap them over the head with it.
Sometimes.
Again, though, getting back to the original story that
Agreed.
birthed all of this, the fractured throat. Can you guys look up for me what difficulties there would be in playing football with a fractured throat? It sounds like a terrible thing that you would not want to re-injure. One of the things that Dominique and I were talking about during the break, I think this is a strength that Dominique has that most in our profession do not. He can crystallize for you how hard it is to get to the points of excellence where you are stronger than the man willing to play with a fractured throat. Because when we talk about what, I know we do too much with gladiators and whatnot, but Armstead was, at the draft, the single most impressive physical offensive lineman there's ever been running and jumping. His speed at his size was not precedented in the history of the draft. He's a little undersized for an offensive lineman, but what I know about him is that no one can get around him. And the second thing I know about him is that he might not play this Sunday. And obviously he won't play this Sunday because there's no football, and he's not going to play any more Sundays because he's retired. But every week for the last 5 years of his career, it was always, that guy's not going to practice. That's a game time decision, and they need him. And if he can only do it at Sunday for 3 hours, they're going to take that body and they're going to shoot it up with whatever gets through those 3 hours. Dominique speaks better than most on the idea of what it takes to get to that kind of excellence in that sport. And when you read that article, were you surprised by what it is the pain was?
I was absolutely surprised but reminded. And I think that this is what was blowing my mind is as I kept yelling fractured throat and looking into the room, I didn't see anybody as stunned as me. I was very confused by it. I was like, no, guys, but like his throat was fractured. And yelling about Armstead not being able to walk till Wednesday or Thursday after Sunday game. And he never played a full 16-game season, and that's why. I get it, because in his third season, and he played 12 years total, his third season, he had a knee injury that inhibited him from practicing again without painkillers. And I think one of the things that I've noticed is, like, obviously there's some genetic factors that make it so, and we see every time we watch the NFL or NBA draft, there are last names that you recognize, and there are factors physically that allow people to excel in certain sports. But the mental and emotional stuff is the stuff that I think I find most interesting, because it is really, and we talked about it a little bit yesterday with the emergence of those tennis pros. It's a place that you have to go to, or have the ability to go to mentally sometimes, that I don't think many of us are familiar with. And then to be even greater than the greatest, that's how you differentiate. And I think we talk about, or at least I talk about, the people who make it to professional sports. I think it's from a very small pool of people that are physically capable of doing those things. But then that's the part that I think you find interesting most, Dan, and I do too, is like, what is the difference between all of those people who want the very same thing being able to answer every question and every test to the degree, while not only are you trying to overcome something very difficult, someone else right next to you is trying to stop you from doing it. It's amazing to me, even though I did it at one point, I guess.
Well, the thing that I find most fascinating about the sociology of sports here is, over the entirety of the world, war-torn countries in basketball, inner cities in basketball and football in America, you have, fighting for status, power, respect, and money, fame, everybody who is the most competitive in the world fighting for the same pot of dollars. Physically, a certain number of people can get that high. But when we're at microphones asking these people to be tougher, I'm telling you that next top 1% of top 1%, those aren't physical gifts that get people there. There are a number of people who have those physical gifts, but there's nobody at the top of that that's throwing it away. And when you guys ask those people to be tougher, I'm like, how much tougher would you like them to be? I understand why you make this assessment of Karl Anthony Towns, but do you understand that that's not just because he was born 7 feet and can shoot from 3, that's as good as that is? Like, that can't. No one gets to that level of high unless they are some semblance of tough that we don't probably understand.
But the Dolphins' offensive line is so much better when Armstead plays.
So toughen up and get out there and play. I know. I mean, Dan brought this up as an area that we should explore because he and I find it interesting. But I know y'all don't give a shit. I know you just want your games, but I do find it interesting. And to your point, Dan, I think that there's a level to make it to that's really difficult. Then there's a higher level to make it to that requires you to like push yourself past some really challenging things, which is fun. But I do recognize ultimately it's entertainment, and the way that people talk about entertainment is like the same way you would talk about a movie that someone spent years raising money for and writing and filming and acting. And they were like, I want my 90 minutes back. That movie sucked. It's the same way. It's the exact same thing. And I know that to be true, which is why it's not an area I often go down, but I do find it interesting. But I know they don't care.
No, but this is
looking
the
at
thing.
those faces.
I know it's more fun to just talk about the fighting last night and your team being better and we mentally broke them. But I'm actually interested in, and I don't think you can dissuade me of this. When Mike Ryan loves to say someone's banged up this time of year, when none of us would come to work if we felt like whatever banged up was for those guys. Clearly, Draisaitl was hurt last year, obviously. When I ask in that sport Connor McDavid to overcome 4 lines of people who want it as badly as he does, I don't think most people watching actually know what it takes. And to me, that's the most interesting part. Like, whatever the results are, those can happen with process and bounces. The most interesting part is, how did the toughest people actually get to winning beyond the luck? How did they get to be stronger than the other person who I know to also be strong? That's why I think this thing is so interesting as a view. These are heavyweights fighting, and Connor McDavid wants his immortality. He's willing to play the human limits of the body in that sport, but can only be out there half the time. And what happens when the waves come at you when you're not out there? Can he be good enough in half the time out there than all of them are in all the time they're out there? And it just makes it really hard when you're asking him to overcome that. And don't tell us about your injuries. Also, don't tell us you're hurt, because this guy played with a broken leg. Get out of here. How could you play with a broken leg in hockey? One of the most famous goals ever scored in hockey was scored on a broken leg.
But it's all
How?
relative. It's all relative, which is why I understand that the point that we're making is that these people are tougher than us and they're tougher than everybody. But in that community, there are people that are even tougher than them. And we're looking for those guys. And in order to exalt those guys, you got to point out that the other guys aren't as tough. And it's not fun to do, but you kind of, what are you going to say?
Is it true, though? Like, do you?
No, it is true. It is true that there are people, there were people, I was tougher than people to get there. And then there were people who were tougher than me. I freaking saw it, Dan. There were people who were willing, I was willing to do some absurd things. In my contract year, I was in Atlanta. I got hit on a crackback block by Eddie Royal and right in the chest. I got up.
Little Eddie Royal?
Yeah. Little Eddie Royal. So,
cute little, adorable little Eddie Royal.
Think
Little
about
speedster?
it. Yeah, think about it.
Tiniest guy on the field.
Jay Cutler. So it was the team, it was the Broncos. The Broncos traded me before my contract year to Atlanta. We're playing against the Broncos down in Atlanta. Jay Cutler, so this is my teammates. I went to training camp with them. I played at that place for 3 years. Jay Cutler scrambles to the right and then scrambles to the left. I go to the left with him, then he comes back to the right. As I'm coming back, Eddie Royal dives through my chest. And I thanked him after the game because he didn't hit me in the head because it was legal back then. I got up from that play and started coughing and spitting out blood. And then I started to walk in the direction of the sideline because this ain't normal. And then it hit me, nah, bruh, it's a contract year. Lined up and played the next play. And there are people who have done much more absurd things than that because I wasn't even that good.
That's so sexy. It is. It is.
Then I like grounded into the turf there.
And that was
because
Eddie Royal that laid that hit. Like that's wild. Like,
well, when he says there are people tougher than me, this part I'll never understand, and it's not mythology. People say it's so. Ray Lewis, when he hit you, it hurt more. I don't understand that. Like, I don't understand what would have to be happening in the human body that would make him be someone who's hurting other people who know what hurt feels like more than they're usually hurting.
I'll tell you this about Ray Lewis. So I remember like being in high school and like looking around at my teammates and being like I loved them and they did the best they could, but looking around at them and being like, these guys, they ain't got it. They're not going to fight through, whatever. Then in college, there were fewer of them, but there were still guys, and I was still, like, among the top. Like, all right, yeah, they ain't got it. They don't care about this as much as I do. I get to the NFL, and there are fewer people that I recognize are like that. And I look, there's a couple people that are, like, care more than I do. I eventually finally in my 5th year, get to the Ravens, and Ed Reed and Ray Lewis specifically, is towards the end of his career. And I've told this story before, we had a pretty much nothing game on a Thursday night in Cleveland. And I showed up there like, all right, let's go out there and whoop these bums and get on with our business. And he cares more than me. We're in the tunnel, and I'm thinking about let's get this job done so we can get back home. And he's in the tunnel talking to himself with tears welling up in his eyes after already having won the Super Bowl, established himself as probably one of the best linebackers ever, a random Thursday night game. He's like, no, this means something to me. This means something to the city of Baltimore. It means something to my family. It means something to everyone. And I'm like, but what about all these millions of people who I was tougher than and I cared more than? And I'm looking at you like, I don't care. I should. I wish I did. But I don't care like you care.
Well, keep in mind, with the Florida Panthers, not only are they playing through injury, I mean, this is their 3rd Stanley Cup final. They played an extra season worth of postseason games.
Well, but see, this is the part that I really don't know what it costs when I ask Dominique or anybody, hey, the Miami Heat of LeBron blew up after 4 years. Kevin Durant, that whole thing, 4 years. Jokic, tires came off at the end, 4 years. Celtics, Tatum, blows up 4 years. Like, it's hard. It's difficult at the top of stress.
You remember the Ed Reed, I'm hurt dog speech. Like that stuff is real. And to your point, on top of the physical strain and on top of the pressure on each of you depending on each other, because all that stuff matters to your livelihood and everything that you've hoped and dreamed of, there are millions of people watching and criticizing everything you do. You can't leave. You can't walk out your house. You can't open your phone without hearing someone have something to say about what you have done. And then you go back into the locker room and you look across at these people and you want everybody to care as much as you care, but some of them don't.
Did Ray know you were just playing the Browns?